listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
How much white space do you allow yourself in the document of life? Well, hey there. Welcome back. Have you ever received an email or had a document on your desk that you needed to read through, and you look at it and it's one giant paragraph? Or if it's a full-size sheet of paper, maybe it's two giant paragraphs. What's the first thing you think of? For me, it's, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to rest, basically, is what I think. Now, granted, I can stop reading at any time, but you want to at least make it through a paragraph or a page before you pause. But that's exactly what you do when you produce something that's without breaks. Something that people have to trudge through and use up all of their stamina to get through. Because the way that people read and absorb things is that they need breaks, they need to compartmentalize, they need to filter, they need to categorize. And you don't allow them to really do any of that stuff if you give them a giant paragraph without breaks or without white space. By breaking your information into smaller, digestible bits, people will be able to accept it easily. They'll be able to see what you're talking about, they'll be able to understand, and they won't run out of stamina because they won't be using their reserves to just get through that paragraph. The concept of this white space, and it's literally white space because it's not where the text, which is typically black, on the page. The white space is the page showing through. That concept isn't just important in documents and communication, it's also important in writing in general, whether it's nonfiction and it's your hierarchically arranged ideas on a page. People love seeing bullet lists. They love to see a list of things. They love to see big titles. They love all that stuff because their brain just gets it. And when your brain just gets something, you can just sit there and absorb. The same applies to fiction. If your brain can just get the way that dialogue works and so forth, your brain will just get it and you'll just keep flipping those pages and absorbing and enjoying it. And that's just your way of communicating, and it's not even what you're communicating. So that's a layer between you and people in your life, your audience, your peers, and so forth. But this whole concept of white space is taken even further in life. I mean, if you're working a standard job, and remember the podcast on job, career, or calling, and if you don't, please go take a peek at it. If you have a job, you typically have your day broken up into 15-minute break, lunch, 15-minute break. As far as I can remember from when I had a regular quote-unquote job, that was sort of mandated by the government that things had to be broken up that way. And I know people bend rules and so forth, but there's a reason for that too, so that you can kind of regenerate and continue forward. It's also important in relationships, where people have a boys or girls night out, or they have their me time. It's even important for people who typically overthink. Oh, you can't see that I'm raising my hand? Yeah, I'm raising my hand. I'm one of those people. You need a break sometimes from yourself. You need a break from thinking. So if you're planning your entire rulership of the planet, you need sometimes to just sit and stare at a wall or watch mindless television or something. It's been said many times that creatives need time to do nothing. And part of that time to do nothing is white space. But part of that time is also to kind of regenerate and, I mean, spoiler alert, still be creative, but be creative in a completely unrestricted way that has no pressure or consequences. So this particular episode is just simply telling you a few things. When communicating in any way, give some white space. I do that in the podcasts. I mean, I can communicate to you right now by keep talking and trying to give you all sorts of interesting things to say and interesting things to think about and so on and so forth. And I'm planning to... Or I can give some white space in between the ideas I'm giving you and you absorbing, categorizing, filtering, and thinking about them. And if I do it that way, I'd like to think that you also will appreciate what I'm saying a bit more and understand. It applies to public speaking as well. So again, when you're communicating in any form, whether it is the written media, where you can literally see the white space, or the media in which people are hearing and seeing something visual from you, or just communicating in general when you're speaking with someone, I have to throw a little caveat on that, or an asterisk at least, because some people may actually think, well, hold on. Some people may have an experience, and some people may intuitively be going, there's something about that doesn't sound right. And there's something about that doesn't sound right, or that you have a memory of, is that with some people, when you try to communicate in that way, they're going to interrupt you. They're going to interrupt you, and they're going to finish your sentences, or they're going to think that you're not a very bright person. I've encountered all of those things when I've communicated sometimes. Sometimes I'm in a conversation with somebody, and I just have a thoughtful second where I think about what they're saying, which is actually quite honorable. If somebody actually thinks a second or two about what you've said to them, please give them the breathing room to go ahead and process it and then respond. That's a good thing. But we sort of live in a society now that has no attention span. So people aren't really allowed to do that. Or I do see that it's more prevalent than it used to be. So I understand that, but I think it's still the best way to communicate is to communicate thoughtfully. I'm not talking about full-blown stoicism, which we can talk about some other time. Maybe the next episode. But I'm talking about just giving the proper white space, which takes the form of pauses or takes the form of breaks or fades or space between sentences or space between paragraphs or something broken down as a bullet list rather than you rambling on about it for 14 pages. Those are all really important considerations that are going to affect your life. Whether it's you speaking to your kids, If it's you speaking to your kids and you allow for thoughtful pauses, they are going to feel like they can express themselves. You don't even have to agree with what they're saying, but if they feel that they can kind of take a breath, they're far less likely to become angry or agitated. If you do this with clients, the clients will feel like they're being heard. If you do this in your relationship, the person will feel like you care about them, and you do. And in all cases, it's not a false thing. It's a real thing. If you do this in your documents, people will appreciate what you're saying and understand it better. It's a win-win-win-win-win across the board to try to communicate this way. It takes a bit of effort, and it takes a bit of stamina to do it, or to start doing it if you're not used to it. But once you start doing it, it feels very natural, and it feels very natural because it is the way to communicate, even for people who are hyper. And when I say hyper, I mean someone like myself who has a million thoughts going on, that wants to communicate and sometimes over communicates. Try it out, please, and let me know, as always, and thank you so much. Take care. Thank you for listening. I love your feedback as always. Keep it coming. I always appreciate if you like, share, subscribe, and all that nonsense. And if you don't, that's cool too. By now, my new novella, The Devil's in the Details, has hit the shelves. If you like a smoldering quick read, then you may love reading The Devil's in the Details. Check it out.